Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 18 of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us. It is another show, another week, and we're pleased to be joined by Joe Dan Bailey. We're going to get to know Joe and tell his story and get his insights on the racing world. But before we do that, we bring in David. David, another week, an off week for you. How's everything going, man?
Man, just been busy. I've had some sponsor meetings and catching up, being a dad, being a husband, and doing a lot of honeydews. It's been a lot going on, but man, what an exciting weekend it was, especially yesterday, watching the truck race at Bristol and the Cup race. That was pretty exciting, but man, I welcomed the off weekend. I love to race. I'd race every night if I could, but it's not bad to have an off weekend where you can catch up being a dad and a husband. So, I've been busy doing that and catching up on some sporting events and some practices and stuff like that. You know, normal stuff that we don't really get to do every weekend because we're on the road racing.
And before we get any further in today's show, I want to remind the folks that we are presented by Whataburger. Don't forget that every Whataburger is made fresh, served hot and prepared, just like you like it. Want jalapenos and cheese on that? No problem. They've got you covered. Whataburger, proud to serve it hot and fresh 24 hours a day. Dominic Oregon from theracingexperts.com is here in his bright Whataburger orange. Dom, how we doing, man?
Man, I'm always sporting the Whataburger colors, right? The orange on the podcast. I got to give a shout out to Italia Pino. She makes these awesome shirts, and she really delivered on this one. So I got some in the works for you guys too, Dave and Tyler. But things are going great here in Grants, New Mexico. We're finally warming up. We're not having snow in the forecast as a possibility every week. So we're finally hitting those spring temperatures. Awesome to be a part of the podcast here. And, man, just a lot of fun.
You look like the dirt at Bristol, Dom. Which transitions us to look back at Sunday's race, or actually Monday's race, rather, as the dirt put on quite the show. David, it was kind of a mess to get it all together, but once it all unfolded on Monday, it seemed like that NASCAR put a pretty good product out there. What'd you make of the Bristol dirt race with Joey Logano coming out the victor?
Man, you know, a lot of surprises there. You know, I thought NASCAR and the Bristol Motor Speedway, I thought they did a great job. You got to take away the weather. You know, we can't control the weather. But, you know, just the way practice turned out on Friday afternoon, and to see how it all played out, man, I know there was so many people. You didn't even have to be a race fan that follows NASCAR. I had a bunch of friends of mine that aren't big racing people that were really tuned into the race and asked me a lot of questions today about it. But I thought NASCAR, the racing teams, the crew chiefs, the engineers, the drivers, just everybody involved to put on a dirt race, which, you know, I could be wrong. I think the last one they had in NASCAR was 1970. Richard Petty won it. But, man, you look at what Martin Truex done in the Truck Series, winning that race. I mean, I was really just surprised how well he did on the dirt and others, you know. And then you have your dirt track racers that grew up on the dirt, that still racing dirt, that were in the truck race and in the Cup race. And to see how our superstars of our industry, you know, you talk about the NASCAR Cup Series, the best race car drivers in the world. And man, that is so true. You know, you just look at Joey Logano and just what all the drivers did. And you look at Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson, and they ended up getting in a wreck and things happened. But man, I was really, that really steps out in my mind after the race was over was how good the drivers did. And I don't think Joey Logano or Martin Truex they don't have, you can probably count on one hand how many times they've been on a dirt track. So, man, it was exciting, and I'm glad they're going to do it again next year. I just hope to take the Xfinity Series, and we get to be part of that weekend. But it was exciting.
Yeah, certainly was. Dominic, Joey Logano gets the win, and he goes from the broadcast booth doing our job to victory lane 3 hours later. Just remarkable what Logano did, and another winner in 2021.
That makes 6 winners now in the first 6 Cup races of 2021, or 7, 6 or 7, 6 races in?
7.
See, I'm even losing track of the races. We have so many winners to talk about. But that trend of the last 2 weeks, Ryan Blaney being a driver analyst in Atlanta and then going out and winning. Joey Logano being a driver analyst at Bristol and now winning. So, man, do you feel like a lot of drivers are going to try to line up and be in the broadcast group now?
Can't blame them.
We might have to call up Fox and see if they can set David up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Put you up in the truck booth with Vince and Mikey. That'd be a lot of fun, actually.
Absolutely, it would.
This week's guest is Joe Dan Bailey. And David, I want you to introduce the world to Joe. What should folks know about Joe before we bring him in?
Man, Joe Dan Bailey's from Houston, Texas. I think Joe Dan will share with us, but, you know, he's a great guy, great friend. But, man, you know, I knew his dad first, H.B. Bailey from Houston, Texas. If you're a race car person or, you know, as a kid growing up, H.B. Bailey, A.J. Foyt, Ronnie Chumley, Johnny Rutherford. You talk about Texas race car drivers. H.B. Bailey was in there too, and H.B. was, man, what a character, what a great guy he was, and a great race car driver. But Joe Dan Bailey, man, Joe Dan, I can't wait for everybody to hear his story because, man, what he's done in our industry, I'm proud of him. I mean, I'm from Texas, and there's not many that come out of our great state of Texas that go on and have successful careers in NASCAR racing, you know, and Joe Dan he's done a lot. He's a head engineer there at Toyota Racing Development on the Xfinity side. And, you know, he's been with Roger Penske, Richard Childress Racing, and he's just done a lot. So let me stop bragging on him and bring Joe Dan Bailey in. Hey, Joe, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well, guys. Thank y'all for asking me on tonight, and I'm excited about talking about racing. It was y'all were talking about Bristol a little bit earlier. It was a great show there yesterday. It's a little dirty, a little dusty, but NASCAR did a great job of getting it in there. The effort that they put in to turn that track around where it went from Friday in practice and that dry slick as bad as it was to then the monsoon and the flood. If you look on my social media on Facebook, you'll see some of the photos of that cloud coming in. It looked like Armageddon's fixing to hit. And the bus, I work out of a bus. The bus was rocking back and forth. The wind was blowing so hard. And then they sent us home for a day. And then we come back on Monday, and they put on one heck of a show. And Martin and the KBM truck, that's one of our Toyota trucks, he went and he found grip wherever he needed to find grip. And probably had one of the best vehicles, I'm going to say, on both races. The KBM 51 was the best vehicle all weekend as far as going and finding grip and being able to turn to the bottom from the top and do what he wanted to with it. It was pretty incredible.
Joe Dan, it was unbelievable. I was so impressed with the 51 and Mark Truex Jr. You know that 51 Kyle Busch Motorsports truck is always strong, but man, like you said, he could run high, he could run low, he could run down on the bottom. And, man, that thing would rotate in the center and have some great forward bite. It was just so impressive to watch. But, Joe Dan, will you share with all our listeners and everybody, what is your role today? You know, you're talking about Kyle Busch and Mark Truex Jr. and all these guys. Will you share with us what your involvement is with Toyota and NASCAR today?
Currently, I'm the senior engineer for the trucks and for Xfinity for Toyota Racing Development. I travel each week, whichever series is there. Like I said, I was with the Bristol dirt track last week, and earlier today I was working on the Xfinity Talladega race a month out, getting reports ready for that. I generate a certain amount of reports for the teams, try to prepare them, give them all the information they possibly can have for when they go into the shows. So they're not only a reminder of what happened in the past, but also what to anticipate. Do all the tire reports for both series. Just so they know on the camber and caster and the toe and that, and just try to help prepare them as much as possible. And, it was just like the other day, I'm in Victory Lane at the Bristol truck race, take a picture of the right rear of the 51, and I'm turning around, I'm sending it to Adam Stevens and Ben Bashore and James Small and the Cup crew chiefs there, Wills over on the 23, and telling them, hey, this happened in the last 20 laps because I talked to Martin and that. So you try to do as much prep work to be ready for it, anticipate what's going to change, and then also send it to the next level for the next event, whether it's a cup event, Xfinity event, or whatever happens after that. So that's what I'm doing now. I've been very fortunate. Back in the early 80s, grew up in Texas. And Tyler, the name's Joe Dan. I was born in Texas, so I'm allowed to have two names. Okay, so it's Joe Dan Bailey, not Joe. Okay, but anyway, that's my joke. They actually say I was named after the motel a mile away from the racetrack in Shreveport, Louisiana, the Joe Dan Motel. But anyway, back in the early 80s, we with Greg Davison at San Antonio Speedway and doing the All-Pro Series, working with my dad, a longtime racer, Texas World Speedway. And then in 85, a guy by the name of Dick Bear, his brother was Bob Bear that owned New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Dick Bear was running a cup car up here and asked me to come up and work with those guys. So I came up here in 85, moved up here in 85. Did that. We ran Little Waltrip in 86 for Rookie of the Year. And then I went over to Bob Whitcomb Racing. My first win was a Daytona 500 in 1990 with Derek Cope. We won another one later that year at Dover with DC. And then Childress tabbed me in 92, and I went over there and we won 2 championships with Richard Childress and Dale Earnhardt Sr., his number 6 and number 7.
Wow.
Left there, went to Michael Cranifus, which ended up becoming Penske Cranifus, and just went on. And I've been real fortunate as a team member. I've won, I think, 35 Cup races as a TRD senior engineer. I've got over 200 truck wins and 100 Xfinity wins in that range or whatever. And it's just part of a great organization. Toyota, it was funny. Somebody made the point this past weekend at Bristol. So we knew of 3 people that have raced Bristol in asphalt, concrete, and dirt. And it's myself, Slugger Labby, which also works for TRD, and Andy Graves, which also works for TRD.
Wow.
Toyota is we're young in the sport compared to a lot of guys, but we tote a lot of experience with us.
Absolutely.
So anyway, yeah, so that was kind of cool to be put in that group, which means I'm old.
Or experienced.
That's what I told my boss today. I said the politically correct term is surface experienced.
That sounds good. Hey, that works.
Yeah.
Man, Joe Dan, you golly, man, just hearing all the successes and wins. And one thing I know about Toyota, because I was once a Toyota driver, that manufacturer, that organization, what they bring to the just auto racing, NASCAR racing when they first came in, it's amazing, But one of the things I do know about Toyota, they surround themselves with very, very talented, I would say just sharp, brilliant people, you know what I mean? The whole racing program as I know it. And, man, you fit right in there with them, man. So it's no surprise that Joe Dan Bailey is the head engineer, man. It's interesting to hear what that role, what that entails, how detailed that is, and to all the work that goes and all the information you feed the teams way prior to going to a racetrack. And then once you find out what the trends and what's going on, and then just share it with the Cup guys. It's pretty interesting to hear all that.
Yeah, it's really an honor to work with the people I work with. And what you were just saying right there, I've been very fortunate. I've worked with people like Buddy Parrott and Tim Brewer and and Richard Childress, with those guys. And those guys are legends without a doubt. But also with that, the one thing that they've taught me throughout the years, and I've tried to always relate to the teams, and you can see it with Coach Gibbs. Coach Gibbs is a great example of this. You're only as good as the people you surround yourself with, which I feel honored right now, okay, with the people I'm surrounded with on this podcast. But anyway.
We got to have Joe Dan. We need him around more often.
No, but really, You sit there and you're only as good as people you surround yourself with, and you got to depend on them. You got to believe in them, and let them do their job. And then also know that, and Mark Conquest, the head engine builder over at Joe Gibbs Racing, he goes, like this, I want people that if I tell them, let's go, and we're running towards the edge of the building, I want them to run just as hard as I am right off the edge of the building, knowing that I've got a cushion on the other end to catch them. And then once we get down there, then they can ask me, why'd we do that? Okay. But until we get the task done, it's full steam ahead, and that's kind of what we are. When Andy Graves comes and he needs something done, it's not time to question it. It's time to go, this is what we're going to do. And we're going to do it full speed, because the man's smart enough that we know he's got a purpose. We know that he's leading us as a competition director into the right way. And that's what we're doing. We believe in the people around us, and the drivers, the teams, and everything. You look yesterday, Martin Truex. He had a short track racer. You know who his crew chief was? Marty Lindley.
Wow.
You recognize the last name,
Yeah.
Butch Lindley? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And here's a short track racer. Okay. Yesterday completed a 5-race win streak for him at Bristol on different surfaces and different stuff. No, but everybody missed that. Marty told me in Victory Lane, he goes, yeah, this is my 5th in a row up here. I'm like, that's awesome. But it's the whole short track knowledge, bring it to it, set the truck up and parlay it. So, Kyle is the same thing. He surrounded himself with good people there, with Eric Phillips and Danny Stockman and Marty Lindley, crew chiefs, and that's really our MO. You gotta have good people around you to be successful.
Absolutely. And it shows up on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. You look at Toyota and the drivers that pull into victory lane, and why. Just listen to Joe Dan speak and tell us, kind of what his role is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then to add on to that, David, it amazes me, Joe Dan, that here's the Toyota organization by numbers in the Cup Series has the least amount of teams of anybody, right? But
Right.
You guys put quality over quantity. That all those teams are competitive in some way, shape, or form. And a lot of that goes back to what you guys are doing at TRD to put the best product to help everybody out there, make sure everybody's on the same page of sorts.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. We hit quality over quantity is just as a fact. We've got the best people. We went out and we got Joe Gibbs Racing a year after we got into it, and and seeing the potential there. And coaches, resume coming in, what he did, in football and everything. He proved he was a winner, the type of people that you want around you, and that was the whole thing. We don't need a ton of people. We just need really good people. And that was what we tried to do. And it's bit us a couple of times, in the Xfinity series, our number one thing is to have the manufacturer's championship. In all 3 series, we want to win the manufacturer's championship. That's us. And with that, we have 3 cars that run in Xfinity at the top level in Gibbs. And you go to the road course and something happens. Somebody comes barreling through there and takes out a half a dozen cars or whatever because they missed a turn. And all of a sudden you're getting a 15th place finish in points. And that stuff you can't make up, because a lot of these guys, whenever they go on a engine blowing spree, they've got their 6th place guy is moving up, where when we have only 3 bullets in the chamber and something adverse happens like that, then, we had to take a big points hit. And that's probably one of our biggest downfalls, is we don't have the points accumulators to win the manufacturer championship. But when we do, it's off the hook. We're doing it in truck right now. We're 5 for 5 in truck. Ben Rhodes has come out just, with a dagger. Won the Daytona, the first 2 races at Daytona. Mm-hmm. Then KBM's been on the last 3 with John Hunter and Kyle and Martin. And, those guys have been outstanding. And that little kid that drove the 18 car down on the Daytona road course. You heard of him before, Ty Gibbs? How about that? First race of ever
Dude.
that he run, and he goes out and he wins it. You know, but when you look at it, though, and Ty's an outstanding talent, but he's sitting there, and his crew chief is Chris Gill. For the people that don't know, and even though he's a University of Arkansas alumni, so you got to kind of get a little iffy there. But anyway, a lot of college basketball goes on in that camp. Anyway, you know, his car was outstanding. And Ty could do what he wanted to do with that car. He could throttle it up. But the kid sat there and he chased down the leader. I think the 22 was leading it. I can't remember who was leading it. But anyway, and he chased him down, got close to him, but he used his tires up so that he backs off a second. And then all of a sudden, with 5 to go, he goes and gets back on it again after he lets his tires cool. How does an 18-year-old kid do that? I mean, that is just incredible. Good coaching, great car, great team around him, and just a ton of confidence. So, you know, we're really looking for Ty coming up. We feel like he's a, you know, the next step in another Chris Bell, like Christopher Bell was, or is, I should say, because Christopher won that same weekend. So, you know, we're just very fortunate to be around a lot of good people. And that's my whole deal. I did that whole thing about winning this and winning that, but I've rode some great coattails. I'm serious. Dell Sr. was outstanding. The guys, you know, KB, Kyle Busch, and Martin, and those guys that I have to deal with now, or that I deal with now, incredible. I'm just blessed to be around those guys.
Well, Joe Dan, I don't think they put you in that spot. You know, you're part of TRD. I don't think they put you there on accident. I think you probably created the opportunity, and you know, your accolades and all the successes you had, you put yourself there. So, you know, talking again, you know, they surround themselves with good quality, smart people. And that's why on each and every weekend, you see a Toyota vehicle pulling in the victory lane, whether it be the Truck Series, Xfinity, or Cup, you know? So, absolutely.
Yeah, and I appreciate the kind words, David. That's very kind words. We have the avatars that we use on our chats, and when we're talking, because I'm constantly talking with the crew chiefs during the race and the engineers during the race, and with the avatars there, you know, I asked them. I said, make sure you put your car number, so I know who I'm looking at, and as far as live pictures and stuff. And if you look at my avatar, it is Forrest Gump, because that's what I feel like. I've been in so many great situations. I feel like the Forrest Gump of NASCAR, where, you know, you turn around and there's Bear Bryant. You turn around, you know, and there's President Kennedy or whoever, you know, like the Forrest Gump story. And that's kind of the way I feel. I've been around forever and just got to be around a lot of cool people. So kind of the Forrest Gump of NASCAR.
That's my favorite movie. So I guess your NASCAR life has been like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. So.
Absolutely.
Wow.
You mentioned the development program, Joe Dan, and I think this is fair to say. I don't think I'm saying anything controversial here. Toyota has been the best development program in NASCAR for the last several years, with all the talent that you guys have put through there, and even produced just for the sport, even beyond Toyota that we've seen go to other manufacturers. It's just been phenomenal. What is it that's attracting you guys to get these top racers to come through your program? Is it what you guys are offering? Is it the drivers coming to you? How are you guys bringing in this top talent?
Well, we depend on Tony Stewart to put that stuff out there. Okay, I don't know if you've heard that story about Tony Stewart with us, and him making the article earlier this year about that we're ruining kids' careers. So I didn't know if that was. I'm sorry, y'all hadn't heard the Tony Stewart story. That was a jab. Anyway, you know, it's really incredible because we're seeing. We've got a guy that goes around to the midget races, the late model races, that, and we're constantly keeping track on people around the country, kids, and I mean literally kids. Jesse Love's won that last year. He won the ARCA champion, I think ARCA West or something like that championship in at Phoenix, and we've actually been keeping track on him for 2-3 years prior to that, when he was just he was whipping everybody's butt in the late models out on the West Coast. And Jack Irving, our guy that keeps up with it, he told me about Jesse with that. And Gracie Trotter's another one that has really done good out of Houston. So we try to keep track on a lot of people with that, and not all of them make it. It's a tough deal. But you turn around and you look at it, and two of the Hendricks drivers right now. I'm just thinking of two of them. Let's see, who's the other one? We got Bowman and William Byron. Both of those are Toyota development drivers. Okay. Then Kyle didn't come through it, but he races Toyotas. Kyle Larson, he races Toyotas in his midget. So there's a lot of those guys that come through our thing. But even more than that, and it's kind of funny because not only do we create drivers, and we create good drivers, but good people, okay? And that's one of the things with Coach Gibbs. But also, if you turn around and you look at the pit boxes, Todd Gordon, Paul Wolf, both of them came through our program. That's two Penske top guys.
Wow.
Rudy Frugal, Cliff Daniels from Hendricks, both of those came through our program. So we have crew chiefs that come through also. Rodney Childers, when he went to Harvick, that was one of his big things. He went over there to Ford, and then he goes, y'all are doing it wrong. This is what we need to do, and based it off of what he learned with Toyota at MWR. So we're touching so many people in the sport, not only drivers, but crew chiefs and team members, and changing the way that people look at the sport. It's really, an honor to be part of it because of the way our approach of it and the way that we try to make sure that we don't, we know we don't have a place for everybody, but it doesn't matter. If you're there right now, you're us. And that's what we want to do.
Joe Dan, you mentioned Arkansas earlier, so I got a football comparison for you.
All right.
You guys are Alabama. Alabama football is what you are. You get the best talent. They come through your system, and not everybody's good enough. Some guys miss the cut. Some guys transfer and find a great home elsewhere, and it didn't work out. But you know what? They still got another opportunity to go be an All-American or something, like that. I mean, it's not – I don't fault you guys at all. This is what I would counter to Tony Stewart in saying that, hey, it's not your fault that you guys are just the best recruiters out there, that you find the best talent. That's not your fault. You guys are just doing your jobs. You're better at it than anybody.
Yeah, and that's just it. Our guys do their job. Our guys do their job very well. But also with that, we give them the tools to succeed. Right. It's a whole deal. It's a package thing. We find great people, but also on top of it, we make sure that we don't treat anybody any different. We've got a group right now, Sam Hunt Racing, in Xfinity. This is their first year, and we're trying to give them everything that Joe Gibbs Racing gets. In the truck series, Bill McAnally Racing, same type deal. And Bill McAnally came in last year, and they had a young kid, or they have a young kid by the name of Derek Krause. And Derek sat there and barely missed the playoffs in a bad year for us in trucks. He was, I think he missed the playoffs by about like 5 points last year as a rookie. But we treated him just like anybody else and gave him the same chance that we gave everybody else. And it's like I said about two of my favorite crew chiefs that I've worked with. And when I say my favorite, it's because of the way they use the resources, is Adam Stevens and Paul Wolf. Those two guys would listen to everything he had to say. They would absorb everything that anybody in our system told them, but they were smart enough to understand what to take and apply and what to throw out and not use, and that was just it. They were the open-minded guys that would listen but also they were smart enough to use it like a good coach does. You know, he's sitting there listening to all his assistants, he's listening to all his players, and then he's figured out how he wants to apply them and to be successful. And that's where those guys are, you know, and that's probably one of the most impressive. And that's what we try to do. We try to give every single team, no matter who they are, everything we possibly can, and see how they're able to use it. Because out of that, you're going to find that grain of sand that's going to come into a pearl, you know. Heck, Eric Jones, outstanding talent, great driver. He got his deal because he went down there to the snowball. Kyle Busch is running the snowball derby. Kyle's leading it. Eric comes up there, pressures him hard, burns Kyle's tires off by pressuring him that hard. Eric cools back down, comes up, beats Kyle, and wins the snowball derby. Kyle gets out of his car at the ends of it, doesn't go congratulate him, or I don't know if he did or if he didn't, but what he did do was he went and got his phone. He called Ed Laukus, which is my boss's boss's boss, and told him, I found your next deal right here. You got to sign this kid. And he turned around and he won a truck championship. He almost won an Xfinity championship and did great for us in Cup. And, you know, with the next gen car, there's no telling where he's going to be at in the future. He's one of those smart kids. It's a good racer, and that was nothing more than that. And so you got feelers out there the same way a high school coach is going to get his butt kicked by somebody and then call the college coach up and go, you got to look at this guy. Absolutely. Okay, he's the deal. He's the real deal. Same type thing, you know.
So let me ask you then, with bringing in David here to the equation, I mean, this is not breaking news to anybody, but David, I mean, he's not, you know, young pup or anything.
Really?
What do guys like David bring to TRD? David's driving Toyotas. What do the veterans do? I know David's working with some younger guys there at MBM and such. What do the guys like David bring to the Toyota program?
You know, the experience level that the people guys, first of all, all right, let's say what we've got coming up here in June, okay? We're going to Nashville. We hadn't went to Nashville since 12, okay? So we've got a bunch of kids that have come on the series since the last 12 years. David has raced there, okay? So now you've got somebody like David and the kids around him and the people like that. They look for the veterans of, hey, what I need to look for here, what I need to do. David's going to turn around and tell them, don't overcharge the corner, roll the center of the corner. That's the key to this place, you know, and that's where those guys come in. The other thing is, back to the crew chiefs, okay, back to that, he's going to sit there and go, all right, guys, this is what we got to make sure that we focus on for the car to be able to do during this event. Okay, so with the experience level, the experience is the key. It's like what I was talking about with the 3 different surfaces of Bristol earlier. Okay, when you have that experience, you get to translate it and transfer it to other people. And where you got somebody like David, like that in a group of kids, which is what we're racing with today, you've got somebody you can lean on. I mean, heck, even when Bowman was coming up, and those guys, there was many a day I told him, I said, have you went over and talked to Kyle? I said, what do you mean have I went and talked to Kyle? And they said, go ask Kyle what it'll do. And they're like, oh, wow, I can do that? And I'm like, he's a Toyota resource. Okay. You know, go talk to those guys. That's what they are. And that's where people like David that have the experience that can do that, that's a value of them. Everybody has value, man.
Man, just listen to Joe Dan talk, just talking about the Bristol service. I ran on Bristol when it was asphalt and it was a bump and run, man. You got out of that low lane, man, you lost 10, 15 spots, you know what I mean? And then next thing you know, they concreted it, you know what I mean? And gave it multi-lanes, you know? But, man, what a great racetrack. Man, Joe Dan, it's so good to hear. I mean, just love hearing the insight, how Toyota works and all the opportunities it's given to a lot of young kids, not just young kids that have so much driving talent, but just the crew chiefs and everybody. Toyota's really done so much for our sport. It's amazing.
And the best part is they moved to Texas now. Okay.
Absolutely. Right now, 2 minutes from my house, man. 2 minutes from my house. There you go, man. And you talk about a facility. Woo, man, it's beautiful. God, it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's a campus, isn't it?
Absolutely. My neighbor works for Toyota. My neighbor across the street works for. It seems like everybody in Frisco, Texas, works for Toyota. Pretty cool company, man. Pretty cool company.
You know, go ahead.
Oh, just want to ask you here too. I mean, certainly you're traveling every weekend, 10 months out of the year. You're on the road, different states, different places, different racetracks. But what does the NASCAR off season look like for you? What does the day-to-day look like for you? Does anything change, or how does that all look for Joe Dan?
You know, well, right now, to be honest with you, since the pandemic hit, I haven't been in the office full time since March. Every week when I travel, I go on a 2-week quarantine out of the office. The office has been shut down except for, our rigs that run. We have certain rigs that run in there. So whenever it was coming in, I remember last year at Phoenix, getting ready to go to Atlanta, we started hearing about this deal. So when I got back to the office, they said, take all your equipment home. So I'm sitting here with my laptop. I've got dual monitors up here, raised up desk, everything. And this has been in my office for that. So in the off season, I'm doing all my turnaround work and my prep work for the following year. I do a lot of wrap up stuff, do my race history. The background work that we do of each race is incredible. So anyway, just trying to organize that and get it where it's going, ready to apply for the next year. And then I start doing my reports. Like I said earlier, I'm working on Talladega. We just raced Bristol was race 7 for the Cup cars, and I'm working on race 10 right now, doing some stuff for there. So, you always try to stay ahead. And I've been very fortunate. I've been married to a young lady since 1986. She's stayed with me through this whole deal, and each week me being gone, she's raised 2 kids. Tanya's been incredible. Raised our 2 boys up while I'm on the road, because I've been on the road since '85. So with that, it's just very blessed to have the support of my kids and my wife and that. But it's just like this morning. For example, I got up, I did race lap summary for the trucks. I did my points for the trucks in the Cup. Worked on a Talladega report, like what I was saying, and then listened to the race review from the weekend from California. We're just like y'all with the Zoom. We're doing Microsoft Teams and doing the meetings like that. Tomorrow I'll work on Kansas. I'll start on my Kansas truck stuff. So, even when I'm not on the road, I'm constantly working here at the house. I'm about a 13 handicap golfer right now. So I try to work on my golf game. I do, me and my wife, we get up each morning at right at 4:00 and go run in the morning, and then come back, and and that's our time of day, because we get up, we run at 4, we meet back here about 5:30. We have coffee. She's a paralegal, so we'll spend an hour together, and that's really been our secret. We've always made time for each other, and we stay best friends. It's hard to keep a family together during doing the job that I do, and she's an incredible woman for being able to stay with me all these years.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So Dom, I don't know if I answered your question there or not, but
you did absolutely.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
So,
it is episode number 18 of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. We are presented by Whataburger. Stop by Whataburger for Stop by Whataburger for a hot, hearty breakfast. Any morning or late at night, they're serving up breakfast from 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. Proud to serve it hot and fresh 24 hours a day. What a burger. Joe, Dan, I got to ask you, when we've talked about these changes with the pandemic and such, you mentioned your role. You've been out of the office for a year. What about the practice and qualifying limitations that we've seen? We went all last season, once we returned to racing without practice and qualifying. We've seen a little bit of it in 2021. How has that changed things for you guys?
For us, first of all, I want to say it's a double-edged sword, because the bad part about this whole thing was no fans. Okay. And that's absolutely been the worst part of it. I think Daytona road course last year was the first time that we had fans around us, and that we were still in the bubble. They keep us in a separated bubble each week away from the fans. But last year at Daytona, just looking out and seeing the fans and the campers and all that stuff was incredible. And it was great this weekend at Bristol, looking up in the stands and seeing the people up there. But with that, for us, it actually plays into our wheelhouse. Okay, for not having the practices and not having the qualifying. The qualifying's a little tough, because if you have a instance like Martin yesterday, he's sitting there running second and third. Last restart, ends up having a tire cut down and finishes 19th. And that's going to determine where he's going to start next week at Martinsville. So that's kind of a rough deal for him. So having a qualifying makes it where you're not depending on your last event as much. It's helped with the budgets of the teams. A team like Sam Hunt Racing, the new team, they're not spending quite as much money. Bill McAnally, and even ThorSport, KBM, those guys, they're not spending quite as much money because they don't have to have the backup truck each week. When you have practice and you have qualifying, you got to have a spare truck on the hauler. So, and that's a big expense. So it's a little bit of a benefit for those guys, but also with that, the programs that we have and what we help the teams with, the majority of them, we're able to make sure that when they drop the rag, when they bring out the green flag, that the cars are right for the most part. I think that was one of the things that got Kyle last year. He went on a long streak of no victories in Cup. And I'm not 100% sure it wasn't the simple fact that Kyle and Adam are wonderful, are really good people at tuning a car and doing the fine tune on it. And, that next level, and they were using that first run to make that adjustment that they'd normally make in practice off the simulation. So it put them behind the eight ball a little bit, because they had already used up that first run, where everybody else was making their change from the previous 30 minutes on the track to the next. So I think that might have hurt them a little bit, but all in all of our cars, they're unloading. They're not on the splitter. They're not having a huge issue there because of what we do with the simulation and the pull down rigs and that. So it's a bad thing because of the fans and the crowds. Don't get me wrong, but the budget it saves, it plays into our wheelhouse. It helps the teams out, and we're able to strive with it, and it was a method, or you had to get an understanding of what you were seeing there. Okay. But I think everybody's adapt to it, and you play the cards that are dealt you and make the best out of it. And I think that's what we did. And I think that's what we're doing right now. So it's
Absolutely. I think with what TRD, what you guys give the racing teams and the all the technology and you talking about the pull down rig and just all the stuff that all the tools that Toyota gives its crew chiefs and teams, and to unload at the racetrack and be as good as you guys are, it's really a testament to just the TRD, the people involved, the drivers, the crew chiefs, the engineers. I mean, the simulation. It's amazing how good the Toyota teams are when y'all unload and there hasn't been any practice. And, man, and how good the cars are right off the track, it's right off the truck and trailer. You know what I mean? It's just amazing.
Yeah, I gotta tell a little story on David there. So David came over and spent a little time at the office a couple of years back, running our simulator, and he got in there. And I think he was at a road course, but if y'all could see that cabinet behind him off his right shoulder there, how green it was, that's about how green he was when he come out of there. Because The young guys, they adapt to it pretty quick, but some of the older ones, they might struggle with it just a tick. They fell in that category. So,
I was glad to learn because, man, I was mad at myself, but I was glad to learn that I wasn't the only one. And us older guys, man, this guy, man, that Toyota simulator is, I mean, you can't imagine. You can only imagine just hearing Joe Dan speak about TRD in general. But, man, their simulator is so spot on and it's so real. But, man,
now, David, is it a simulator or a simulator?
Simulator, absolutely. But, man, it was amazing, but I could run about 5 laps and I needed to make a pit stop and go visit the local, the closest trash can, you know what I mean? But I was glad to learn that I wasn't the only older driver that had that problem.
Yeah. You fell into, with some Hall of Famers in there.
Hey, Joe Dan, let's we got a little bit of time. There's so much to talk about. Share with the folks, share with everybody, man. Tell them how cool. I mean, for a kid like me growing up in Houston, Texas, just loving NASCAR racing and being part of Myers Speedway. Talk a little bit about your dad, because he was such a interesting, great race car driver that everybody knew growing up. You mentioned H.B. Bailey. If you knew anything about racing, everybody knew who H.B. Bailey was. And, man, Alameda Auto Parts, and just, man, your dad, I don't even know when his first Cup race was. It might have been 1960, 1959. I don't know. But, man, I just know that your dad was just – us race car drivers, there's no H.B. Bailey racing in NASCAR anymore, man. Your dad worked on his race cars. I mean, he drove them to the racetrack. I mean, he could do it all, you know what I mean? And he'd get in his race car at a racetrack and race good, run good, So tell the people a little bit about your dad, man. What an impact he had on your life and a lot of others as well.
Oh, yeah. Dad was we had a wrecking yard there on the south side of Houston, Alameda Auto Parts. And when you looked at it, it looked like any old wrecking yard there. But when you went through a side door, and when you went through the side door, then you got over into where the body shop was. And then the back part of the body shop, there was another door, and you went in there. And now you're looking at you think of a typical Texas junkyard, right? And you go in that next one. Now you get in that back one back there, and there is red not plexiglass, polyurethane floors throughout. The whole place is just immaculate. It had it had a dyno that we got from Cotton Owens. It was one of 6 in the world. AJ had one. Home and Moody did, from that. And it was just an incredible shop. You'd go in there and you'd see some of AJ's guys working in there. It was, one of those deals where he was just a hard-working guy, started out running a record service and auto parts over there, and ended up making friends with people, of Richard Childress and Junior Johnson and that. And I remember pictures when I was a kid of a Liberty Bell race that happened out there at Myers Speedway. And, Jabe Thomas and Cecil Gordon and Frank Warren and all those guys coming over to the house. And we had a swimming pool, and they come over to the house for a barbecue. Dad, a lot of people gave the credit to Del McCoward, but Dad had that saying, because he would go out and he would race all day. He would work, or he'd work in his wrecking yard. Then at night we'd work on the race cars. And then at the racetrack, we'd go and we'd work hard all day long. He had a bunch of guys that worked with him. We talked about Buzz earlier and David Jr. and those guys. And, those guys, they'd work at the track all day and then go and be in the bar all night. It was nothing for us to sign a $3,000 bar bill at the end of the weekend where they'd run a tab up. But when it came down time to it, they they were spot on and did their jobs. And I remember Dad, I was already in North Carolina at one point. I was flying home to help Dad with something, and the guy sitting next to me was Herb Knapp. an old Junior Johnson crew chief, and Dad had hired Herb to come down there and help him. So I got knowing him, and just to be around those type of people and the type of influence that they had on me, and those guys made it fun for racing. It made it. I'm not saying I don't have fun now. I have a blast. I love it. The competition level was great, but back then, you just enjoyed
type of fun.
Yeah, well, you didn't make any money.
Right.
Okay, you worked your butt off all day long. It was a deal that you had to. Everybody helped each other out. You'd go over to the Union 76 pumps, and they'd give you free gear oil. They'd give you free oil for the engine. You'd go to Champion Spark Plug. They'd give you free spark plugs. So it was one of those things that you always, there was a lot of stuff that you did, but also, back then, Dad was kind of a cutting edge kind of guy, because if you remember the old cars had stickers all over the front fenders, right? And with those stickers, you'd get a pack of them, and people would just put them on because they thought they had to have them on. So Dad looked at it a little different. He'd go through it, and he'd take the entry blank, and he'd go, all right, well, this guy here gives money to first, second, and third, but they don't give any money down the line. We're not putting that sticker on the car. That's free advertisement for them. This guy here pays 15th a free set of gauges. We're putting that sticker on the car. I might get that. So he looked at it from a business perspective also. He was very smart with that. And he tried to get, make sure that he wasn't giving free advertisement. And then all of a sudden somebody come over and go, hey, why don't you got our sticker on the car? And he goes, you're not paying me anything. What do you mean I'm not paying you anything? You want to pay first, second, third? And he goes, all right, well, how about, I'll set you up with shocks. And he's like, okay, I'll put it on. And then there you go, so yeah. It was that, and that's what you did back then. You had to work to survive, to make it to the next show. Dad only ran about 8 to 10 races a year. We always went to Michigan. We went to Darlington, went to Charlotte, went to Atlanta. And when Texas World was running, we'd go to Texas World, and do that. So that was his tracks that he loved. But it was also nothing for him to bring his big barbecue pit out and feed the garage area of brisket. Just because he had that Texas hospitality, he wanted to go there and enjoy it, and he liked being around them. We always say that was his hunting and fishing, and that's exactly what it was. It was what he enjoyed to do, and I think that's probably been the biggest influence on me. Is you walk through the garage area and people make the sarcastic comment of you ask them, how you doing? They say, oh, I'm living the dream, in a sarcastic way. And I'm like, yes, you are. Okay, you can be working at the sock mill. You can be doing a lot of worse things. You are living a dream. There's 100,000 people up there in that stadium that would love to be doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Okay? And that's one of the things that Dad really made me appreciate was we are blessed to do what we do. God is, I don't know why. I guess he watches out for the ignorant and the stupid, but he is really taking care of the people, that are there and they've dedicated their life to it. It's been great. So you appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I tell people I'm living the dream, Joe Dan, but I actually mean it when I say that.
So.
Right. If you mean it, yeah. And y'all guys, you can tell for y'all to be doing a show this, like this, for the extra stuff, you can tell y'all enjoy it. Okay. David doesn't have to do this, but he loves it. He's got it in his heart and he loves it, and that's the difference. People ask me all the time, when are you going to retire? I've been doing this since 85. When are you going to retire? And I said, probably when I'm dead. Because I love it.
Joe Dan, I get the same question, man. When have you had enough? I said, hey man, I'm still healthy. I still feel like I'm 20, and I want to race as long as I can, as long as I have enough funding.
Until they tell you not to.
Absolutely. When I can't get sponsors no more, and I don't think I'm competitive personally, where I can't get in a race car and be competitive, then I'll look at doing something different. But until then, man, I'm blessed. I don't know why God has blessed all of us, but we're all very fortunate, very blessed, and we all created the opportunity and we've ran with it. And man, I'm going to run till it ends, you know, and people ask me all the time, hey man, aren't you tired of racing? You've been doing it long. I said, no, I love it. I love it. It's like I pinch myself because I still can't believe that I'm a NASCAR race car driver and they pay me to do something I would do for free. You know what I mean? So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point to transition here as we'll get to our NASCAR news and notes segment in just a second. But first, a reminder that the folks at Whataburger cook up 100% pure beef burgers 24 hours a day. You can get your burger fix anytime, day or night at Whataburger. Proud to serve it hot and fresh 24 hours a day. What a burger. Dominic, what do we got going on this week in the NASCAR world?
Well, one NASCAR champion is going to be honoring another a few weeks from now at the Darlington throwback race in the Cup Series. It was announced March 30th that Chase Elliott will be paying homage to 1992 NASCAR champion Alan Kulwicki with a throwback Hooters paint scheme. Same paint job that he won the 1992 championship with. He will be sporting those colors at the Darlington race. Hooters will also be stepping up and sponsoring for 2 additional races with the number 9 team in 2021.
Joe Dan, we'll start with you. How cool is that going to be to see that that Hooters number 9 on track there at Darlington?
That's going to be cool. I've seen some artist rendition of it earlier today, and they really did a great job of it. And that's, you know, Alan was a special person, very smart. Alan would have fit in the Toyota window. But to see that, it's just neat. You know, he perished way too early in his career, and to see that car, it's gonna be awesome. I love. There's nothing better than the Darlington throwbacks. Man, I go there, and the bad part about it is people are wearing the stuff that I wore when I was a kid. My oldest boy is an engineer for one of the truck teams, and he comes over and he goes, "Hey Dad, can I borrow this from you? You know, you still got this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, I said, "Why?" And he goes, "I'm wearing it on throwback." And I'm like, "Get out of here."
That's awesome.
But yeah, Chase, a good guy. Being able to see him throw tribute to Alan is awesome.
Oh yeah, and then the story too of the fact that he and his dad were, Alan and Chase's dad were going for the championship that year of that car. I mean that's too cool. And Hooters and everything. David, we'll go to you next. I like Hooters. They got great food.
Yeah, they do got great food, no doubt about it. Not as good as Whataburger, but it's good food, you know. But, man, you know.
It's quite the sight to see.
Absolutely. It's a sight to see, that's for sure. But, man, Alan Kulwicki, I mean, I think about Joe Dan. You know, he's obviously engineering, technology, and what Joe Dan brings to the Toyota racing development as a whole and the role he plays in their overall success. I think of Alan Kulwicki, and you know, that was before my time, but as I studied the sport and watched him on ESPN and watched him win a championship in '92, and watched him win the races and read about him, like I heard Jay Dan talk about, that he was something special, because he was special. He was his own engineer. He engineered a lot of stuff, and Joe Dan can probably elaborate more about that, but he worked hand in hand. He was like the engineer, and Paul Andrews was the crew chief, and that engineering mindset that he brought to his own racing team, I mean, look what the success they had. And I think that was kind of like the first time that the engineering, auto racing, NASCAR has always been engineering, but the first time a driver, he was an engineer. I don't know what type of engineer it was, but man, it was impressive to see what they did together, and to have Chase Elliott, do a throwback to then. I think that's pretty special, because of what Kulwicki and his dad, Bill Elliott, man, that was a big rivalry, and what happened in the 1992 season. But man, I just think that's cool, and like we all say, it's just a shame that you know, it's just a shame that his life ended so soon. You know, he had more races to win and more championships to win. You know, so such a great sport, but some tragic stuff that happened in it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, David, on that same thought, because you know, I worked with Paul Andrews over there at the Penske Cranifus, and what you just said there about how much of an engineer Alan was, and I don't know how much his stories ever went out, but during that Atlanta show, when Alan and Bill were cutting it close, and it was going to end up being a very tight one, it ended up being I think a 6-point or something like that. Yeah. Well, we used to get X amount of points for leading the most lap, X amount of points for leading a lap.
Right.
So there was a green flag run going 3/4 of the way through that race, and the nine had already pitted, and so they knew they were going to have fresh tires, but the 7 of Alan was still out there, and Paul was getting ready to call him in, and Alan said, "No, I got to stay out for 2 more laps." And when he did, he locked in winning, leading the most laps for that race, which changed the pace and got him the 5 extra points. Alan's doing that from the cockpit, which I thought was incredible.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and Paul confirmed that, you know, but I mean that was how much he was tuned in on what we needed to do. He knew that he needed to have that for the lap count to lead the most laps that day, and end up winning the championship from right there. You know, and we ran against Alan in '86. I was working for Dick Bear Racing, and Michael Waltrip was a driver. And so we ran for Rookie of the Year against Alan. Alan had that Quincy's deal at that time, and Michael had the Hawaiian Punch deal. And that was the whole thing. Everybody made a big deal about Alan only having 1 car and you know, 1 engine, and he ran the whole series like that. And which wasn't true. He had 2 cars. But anyway, the media blew it out.
A true insight here.
Yeah. You know how those media guys are.
Yeah.
So anyway, but he did an incredible job with that. The one thing I always remember about Alan was there was an old announcer up at Richmond Raceway named Ray Melton. Ray Melton was a true Southern gentleman. So with that, Alan was out there in practice, and he spun his car out and backed it in the wall. And Ray Melton comes on the PA, and he goes, "There's Alan Kulwicki from Milwaukee using up a set of the Goodyear Racing Eagles." Okay.
That's awesome, man. Oh man.
That's good.
Wow, that's a good story right there, Joe Dan.
Yeah.
Wow.
Before we get out of here today, time for our Ask David segment. We ask you to submit questions to us on Twitter at Starr Podcast, Facebook.com/David Starr Podcast, also by email, DavidStarrPodcast@gmail.com. That's DavidStarrPodcast@gmail.com. First question comes from Twitter at RonNorm11 writes, "What do you do with your driving suits? Do you keep them? Do you give them to friends and fans, or donate to charity? Which ones are your favorite?" That's from Gary Norman. David, what do you do with the old suits?
Man, that's a great question, Gary. I was just I was over at the Speedway with one of my sponsors, Mark Tate, owns a T-Top Manufacturing, and he invited me over to the Texas Motor Speedway yesterday to go up into his penthouse there in Turn 2 at Texas Motor Speedway, and he brought some customers, and man, we watched the Bristol truck race and the Cup race, and Mark asked me, man, he had some he's got some cool pictures and stuff, and he said, man, it'd be cool to have one of your uniforms on a mannequin in my condo here, you know. And he said, what do you do with your racing uniforms? And I said, man, I have every one of them. From the first one I had when I started racing bomber cars back in the 80s at Big H Speedway, you know. I've kept every one of them. And my wife asked me, say, man, we're running out of room, the closets. I mean, I have lots of them, you know, and Joe Dan can tell you, because in any given season, I mean, you have different sponsors and you got to have different racing uniforms. So, I mean, it's not hard to have 7 or 8 different uniforms, or maybe 10 or more in a season's time, but I have kept every one of them. And just ask you to answer the question, which ones are your favorite ones? I mean, that's a tough one. So many of them have so many meaning behind them. I mean, the uniform you was wearing when you ran your first NASCAR race, you know what I mean? I have it. That's a special one to me to make it to that level. When I won my first race, the first major sponsor I had. I mean, it's just all of them have so much meaning to me, and so I keep them all, man. I have every one of them. But that's a great question.
Okay, Joe, you got any racing suits around?
You see that?
That's
see that up there?
That looks good.
Yeah, that's one of my dad's. Golly, it's one of his suits from back in the, I don't know, a long time ago. I've got his, the one suit that I do have that's downstairs that I've got put up was a little trivia question for you. Who was the very first track record holder at Indianapolis Motor Speedway in a stock car?
Oh, that was your dad, because he was the first of like 80 some qualifiers that qualified for the 94 Brickyard 400.
Absolutely.
That's right. I have that uniform downstairs. So yeah, that's I only have a couple of uniforms. My stuff, as far as when I was going over the wall back in the 90s, I have my I think my championship uniforms from 93 and 94. With that, I don't really have a whole lot of different uniforms, but I have my dad's from the 94 Brickyard. And then, like I say, some of my championship stuff from there. I have, let's see, champagne bottles from 93 and 94, if you could see them.
Wow, Dale Earnhardt, man, championship with Dale Sr. Well, that's pretty awesome right there, Joe Dan.
That was his number 7 there, and that.
Wow.
Suarez's championship and stuff like that. So I keep some memorabilia, but not a whole lot.
Yeah.
The stuff like that. I got a plaque with my rings over there. I've got a lot of my championship rings with that. So I think been fortunate along those lines. So
that's really
not as many uniforms, but a lot of memorabilia. The hat right there is actually Eddie Gossage gave me that from Texas Motor Speedway when C-Bell won a couple of years ago.
Nice. We got time for one more question before we go here. This one comes from Ricardo in the email inbox, and Ricardo wants to know, guys, I really like the Bristol dirt race. I'd like to see more dirt races, but what tracks should NASCAR consider? What are some other tracks in mind? David, we'll start with you this time. What do you think NASCAR should look into for other potential dirt tracks?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. I really like what they've done with Bristol. I would have never thought, I thought that would go to Tony Stewart's track, Eldora. Or, you look at the Bruton Smith racetracks, the Texas Motor Speedway, right outside the Texas Motor Speedway is a 3/8 mile dirt track. I mean, beautiful facility. You look at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, and across the street is a beautiful 3/8 half mile dirt track. But I really thought it was cool when they brought dirt in and took Bristol Motor Speedway with all that banking. I mean, when they said they're going to have a dirt race there, I'm like, wow. I mean, it was unbelievable. The excitement level, not only for everybody in our industry, all the race fans. I mean, it was just a lot of anticipation on what that was going to look like and how that race was going to come off. And I think it was all a success. But, I'd like to see Bristol continue to have a dirt race. It'd be kind of cool to go to Eldora or go to Charlotte Motor Speedway, the dirt track there, or the dirt track at the Texas Motor Speedway. But it'd be kind of cool to have another dirt track, a real dirt track that was built as a dirt track and bring NASCAR to it, And
yeah,
I think
the trucks are going to Knoxville, Iowa later this year.
Right.
Absolutely, man.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, so I just think it's cool.
Yeah, how about you, Joe Dan? Anywhere else you'd like to see NASCAR try dirt racing at?
Well, this year, Ben Kennedy and NASCAR has done a great job of putting the dirt show on at Bristol. They're taking the Cup cars to Road America. And we're starting to go back to some of these traditional tracks that we did. So in that respect, you're not going to go to the fairgrounds at Raleigh or anything like that anymore. But man, if they could take the Cup cars to Knoxville, that would be off the hook.
Pretty
I
awesome.
would love to see that because that place is so tradition. Iowa fans are great. And the other place, just growing up there and hearing about the place forever. And I've never been there, but I've just heard so many stories about it. But when you talk about the Devil's Bowl, places like that where you're running there, maybe up to the Magic Mile up at Syracuse. That's a good market with New York. You see those type places. The 1 mile tracks, I've done 1 mile dirt with ARCA before there at the fairgrounds at DeCoin. So, if you could put Knoxville in there, you could put Syracuse in there, places like that, and do a combination show, the sprint cars and the Cup cars at Knoxville, the mud buses, like Barefoot Bob McCready used to race when I was a kid, and those guys up at the Magic Mile up at, or whatever they call it, at Syracuse, that mile track up there. That'd be cool. A lot of y'all guys might not remember when we first started going to Indianapolis, the ARCA cars would run on the Indiana Fairgrounds there. And I remember watching Schrader and Jimmy Spencer just beat the snot out of each other on that mile track right there and on the outskirts of Indy, and it was a great show. So those would be great places to go.
Oh, I'm sure. Dominic, you want to see Daytona on dirt, right?
Oh, of course, yeah. Exactly. No, I think Eldora would be a really cool venture with the Cup Series. I don't know if that'd be feasible anytime soon, but I think that'd be awesome. The Bristol Dirt Race, let's hope that stays on the schedule for a few years. Let's fill it out and let's get a good sample size, maybe 2-3 races at least. But yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I think Dave's idea of the dirt track outside of Texas Motor Speedway wouldn't be bad. Plus, David, that'd be a home race for you.
No doubt about it. But I just, any cool dirt track, just to see NASCAR, step out of our comfort zone and what they did at Bristol is just incredible. I know the race fans, there's a lot of good positive feedback from the race fans, and that's exciting for our industry. And I just think it's just going to get bigger and better.
Oh, yeah. Joe Dan, I think your video froze up on us, but that's okay. We're just about
I just went to sleep. You got me?
Still a little frozen there, but nonetheless, we're about to be done anyway. But Joe Dan, we appreciate you joining us. Thanks again for stopping by. Remind the folks what you got going on and where people can follow along with what you got going, Joe Dan.
Well, I'm just at the track. Look me up. I'm not a big social media presence. I do coach JDB on Twitter, but I don't really post a whole lot. You will see some of my stuff on Facebook, just under Joe Dan Bailey. I do a lot of pictures there from the racetrack and talking about what we've seen and do some old school stuff there. But other than that, I've got Martinsville coming up with the Xfinity cars, Richmond with the trucks. They ask me what my goal is each year, and I say to win.
Absolutely.
That's it. Win. Okay, win races, win championships, be done with it.
Hey, there you go. David, you're back on track this week. What's the next few days look like for you?
Well, we got one more weekend off. Easter weekend, we're off this weekend.
Oh, that's right.
And then we head back to Martinsville, man. That's just growing up short track racing, man, I can't wait. I just racing at Bristol, Martinsville, man, that beating and banging, and I'm excited to get back to Martinsville, racing the Xfinity Series, and put our Toyota Supra in the top 10 and have us a great finish. So, but have a busy week, rest of the week. I'm going to enjoy the Easter time with my boys and my wife, and then we'll head back over to Statesville where our racing team is for a couple of days, then get back over to Martinsville, and looking forward to racing there and having a great finish.
Yeah, that'll be great. And Dom, what's going on with the racing experts this week?
We'll continue to cover the sport and any news that happens throughout the week, and just looking forward to Easter this weekend with the family and having some family over at my mom and dad. So we'll have a great time with that. And Dave, I can hear the excitement in your voice for Martinsville. I remember talking with you last year after the Martinsville Cup race, and you were just so excited to be on track. I mean, you were even in the promo for the Martinsville Cup race a couple days ago. So, I mean, I know you're excited about getting back out there.
Yeah, it's just good short track racing. You know, you got to have a good car that rotates good in the center and got good forward bite, and it's just a great ride. I love them all, you know. So, hey, Joe Dan, I can't thank you enough, buddy. Just your insight, and man, thanks for joining us tonight. The race fan's going to love to hear your stories, and we appreciate your time. Okay.
No worries. Now, this was for what was that? A case of spicy ketchup, a couple of Dr. Pepper milkshakes, and some jalapeno cheeseburgers, right?
So Dan, keep ready. Absolutely.
So what you trying to tell me, when I show up at Martinsville, I need to have some Whataburger with me?
Absolutely.
Hey, that sounds like it. And don't forget that every Whataburger is made fresh, served hot and prepared, just like you want it. Want jalapenos and cheese on that, like Joe Dan does? Well, no problem. They've got you covered. Whataburger. Awesome. Serve it hot and fresh 24 hours a day. We'll put the checkered flag out on this edition of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Reminder, as always, to subscribe to the show. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review. Hit that like button. We certainly would appreciate it. And you can follow us on social media, Facebook.com/David Starr Podcast, Twitter @Starr Podcast, and via email, davidstarrpodcast@gmail.com. Have a great Easter weekend, everybody. We'll see you back here next week. So long.